Hi, welcome to the Shepherd's Rest Doc Talk. This is episode 168B.
I'm Cam, this is Julie.
Yes, this is the Acts portion of the Torah portion. It sounds so silly, but I don't know what else to call it. It's the Acts portion.
But not this kind of Acts.
Right. Not that kind of Acts. No. All right, so small recap. We saw Paul heading up, holding all the coats for Stephen's stoning, right? That was 2 weeks ago. Then last week we saw the disbursement of all the disciples because Paul really was adamant about persecuting the assembly.
Because he thought he was doing what was right.
That's right. He thought he was doing God's will, and zeal without knowledge is very dangerous sometimes. Yes. And that's what we're seeing here is he was very zealous for what he thought was the Lord, but had it really been for the Lord, I think the Lord would have showed him otherwise.
Yeah. And it's funny because the truth is, he was in that pivotal turning point of where things had changed. Where, before, Messiah hadn't come.
Right.
And now it was like, are you going to miss this important redefining part of Scripture? Which he didn't.
Right. He didn't. And we're going to see that this week. But it's very important to understand that at this time, all of the emissaries, all the disciples, all the believers, the entire assembly is very much afraid of Paul. Mm-hmm. And they're kind of keeping quiet and keeping everything on the down low.
Gotcha.
Right? All right. So we're going to start in, this week is Acts 9, 1 through 31. So it's not the entire chapter of 9. Okay. It's only to 31. And it's basically just Paul's, I don't even want to call it a conversion because that's not really the correct
word.
Enlightenment would be a very good word because unfortunately the early church took this the wrong way and said, see, this is when he converted from Judaism to Christianity.
Right.
And this is when he had his name changed. But we're going to read about that. So let's start in 9:1. It says, but Shaul, still breathing threats and murder against the taught ones of the master, having come to the high priest, asked him letters to the congregation of Damascus, so that if he found any who were of the way, whether men or women, to bring them bound to Jerusalem. So two little things I want to talk about right here is, sorry if you hear the coyote in the background. We think it's wounded. It's just been howling all day. All right, so the first thing I want to talk about is Damascus was one of the oldest continuously lived cities ever. Yeah. At that
still
point.
Is.
I mean, still is.
Well, yeah,
you're absolutely right.
If you win the oldest back then, you're still the oldest today.
That's right, because it has never, I won't say it's never been conquered. It's Damascus is the place that you have to conquer.
Right.
If you want to conquer the known world at any time in history, you have to have control of Damascus because Damascus is a central trade route.
Right, it's the gateway.
Yeah, it is. It's the gateway to the north, to the east, to the south, to the west. I mean, it really is where you go if you're a traveling anywhere. I mean, you can travel down to Egypt. You can travel down to the Arabia area. You can travel to Turkey. Well, Asia back then. But travel up north to the
Orient.
east. Yes, I mean, anywhere you wanted to travel, Damascus was a great place to stop. So Paul saw this as a major problem because if the believers are strengthening in Damascus, then that means this has the potential to spread like wildfire.
Explode.
So his thought, because he's very smart, is let's squash it there.
Right.
Which I find it's so ironic that that's where the Lord sends him for a while.
Yeah.
Because he's there for a while,
after,
after his conversion. I'm going to call it a conversion with the air quotes, okay? Because that's, so you understand what I'm talking about. But so after his conversion, he stays in Damascus preaching about Yeshua.
Yeah.
With more fervent than any other emissary up to that point.
Because he got the truth and he's just as gung-ho as he was, just now he's got the right.
That's correct.
That makes sense. He's in Damascus. So he actually ends up doing the opposite. He didn't want it. He wanted to squash it. And now the
that's
Lord
what I'm saying.
uses him.
Yes.
Yeah.
Isn't that ironic?
To the world. Yeah.
Isn't that ironic that's where he decides to show himself.
Never say never.
That's right. That's right. So the one person that was head spearing all of this is the person that was converted.
Right.
So we can learn a lot from that. Right? Yeah, converted. Exactly.
I got her back.
We can learn a lot from that because gosh, sometimes we're so down. It's like if this one person can get a hold of Torah,
Right.
it would just spread like what. You just never know who the Lord's going to reveal himself to and convert. All right, so let's talk about 3 through 9. This is the conversion. All right, so 3, it says, and it came to be that as he sojourned, he came to near Damascus, and suddenly a light flashed around him from heaven. And he fell to the ground and heard a voice saying to him, Shaul, Shaul, why do you persecute me? And he said, who are you, Master? And the Master said, I am Yeshua, whom you persecute. It is hard for you to kick against the prods. Both trembling and being astonished, he said, Master, what do you wish for me to do? And the Master said to him, arise and go into the city, and you shall be told what you have to do. And the men journeying with him stood speechless, hearing indeed the voice, but seeing no one. And Shaul rose from the ground, but when he opened his eyes, he saw no one. And leading him by the hand, they brought him into Damascus.
Wait a minute.
Okay, what?
I've read that many times, but it just clicked. So there were 2 men who heard the voice but didn't see anything.
Right.
All it takes is 2 people to be a witness, and then you are considered a sent out one, or as we would say, ordained.
Right.
So he literally was ordained when this happened because he had 2
on the
people
road. Right.
I don't know. Sometimes listening to it, that's why we're supposed to hear the word.
That's right. Hear the word, and that is what settles in. All right, so a few things we're going to talk about in this. You notice that Yeshua says, Shaul, Shaul, twice. Mm-hmm. And that was a term of endearment. You hear the Lord saying to Moses, Moses, Moses. Right. You hear him saying to Samuel. Samuel. You hear him say to Jeremiah. Jeremiah. You know, there are several times in the Bible you hear this, and anytime the Lord speaks something twice, it's pay attention. Emphasis, you know, and a term of endearment, I guess. And another thing, kicking against the prods. I never understood what this meant until I studied it this week. But I'm just going to read it. It says, so the prods or the goads, they're called sharp. It's a sharp implement used to compel an ox to plow straight and to continue pulling. An animal that kicked against its goads injured itself.
Right.
So I'm like, oh, well, that makes perfect sense because as a body, as he's persecuting the body, he's injuring himself.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's good.
Because he's still part of the body.
Yeah. And he literally did injure himself because of his eyes.
Right.
Because it's the only way I can make you pay attention.
Right. And I just love that because it shows that there was not a conversion here.
Right.
It was
enlightenment.
It was an enlightenment. Yeah. It was an enlightenment.
Yeah.
Not a conversion.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, the Christian church likes to use this as this is when Paul or this is when Saul became Paul. And as you can see, I just read it, and there was no name change.
Right.
He called him by his Hebrew name, Shaul, Shaul, and there was no conversion. It was just a precept that Paul needed to get.
Ooh, that's
because
good. Right.
he was still a part of the family.
Yeah.
That's why he's hurting himself by persecuting the others. I mean, that's why Yeshua used this analogy.
Yeah,
so we would understand that. Anyway, so let's talk about his name for a second.
Okay.
So Shaul, Hebrew name, Paul was his Greek name. Right. Now Shaul had it sounded a lot like a Greek word. I can't remember what it is, but I thought it was so funny. It was the way a prostitute walks. So a lot of people think that's why he used his Greek name all the time when speaking to the Greek, because he didn't want to offend or give. It was the same name, like Shaul.
It's like George and Jorge. Isn't it Jorge? Like in Mexico, it's Jorge, but up here we say George. I'm pretty sure that works.
Yes, but Paul. Yes, it is. But Paul was just a name that he chose to use. Yeah, because it was Greek. Yeah, like you said.
Right.
George and Jorge.
Oh, I see. But that would not be the same. Okay, so George and Jorge is the same, different pronunciation.
Right.
But Paul versus Saul is more like someone from India or from China.
You know how you call the people and
hello,
they say,
my
hello,
name
this is
Steve.
Bob.
Or Bob. You're like, no, it's not, but okay.
Right, but we can identify with that.
Okay.
That's exactly what Paul does here. And it has to do with the one who granted Paul's father citizenship. his name was Pauline
something,
which is why they chose Paul as the Greek name when he's out. So he uses that because he can identify.
I'm going to see him as Bob.
Bob.
You mean Paul? Bob.
Yeah. Oh, Bob. Yeah, Bob.
Paul.
Okay. One of the things that happens here is he's blinded by the light, right? Blinded by the light. Anyway, so he's blinded by the light, and one of the major prophecies of the Messiah is he gives
By the way,
recovery.
that was not planned at all. That's
I know.
Hilarious.
He gives recovery of sight to the blind, and having eyes but not seeing. So you have both of these playing out. So the prophecy is he's going to give sight to the blind.
Right.
But Yeshua says, oh, these people having eyes to see, but they don't see.
Right.
So he takes away his sight because he's not seeing the truth.
Right.
And then later on we see he heals him and uses one of his own disciples to heal him to show that he's giving sight to the blind.
I love
because
it.
he's blind.
Right, exactly.
It's just,
he didn't say how you're going to get there.
Right, exactly. He's giving him a physical representation of the spiritual problem that's going on inside of Saul.
I love it.
Whatever we want to say. And when we look at 9 through 16, this is all about the vision that Yeshua gives to Ananias. Okay. So I thought it was kind of interesting that Paul, when he's taken by the hand into Damascus, he's taken to a house of a man called Judas. I don't know. I don't know why that just made me go, what?
Maybe that was kind of to help the name Judas.
Wait, hang on. And he lives on a street called Straight. I don't know. It's just thick with irony. I don't know. I just was reading it going, really? Arise and go to the street called Straight and seek the house of Judas. Anyway, but it's also Yehuda, Judah. And he's telling him, now I want you to go and lay hands on this man, Paul from Tarsus. And of course, Ananias is like, whoa, wait, hang on.
Yeah, that's the bad guy.
So he kind of argues with Yeshua, not in a, I'm not doing it, not in a Jonah type of argument, but in a, wait a minute, you do understand, I love it, you do know that this is the same Paul that's persecuting us and wants to kill us all, right? And the whole reason he's in Damascus is to arrest us and take us back to, to be imprisoned, flogged, and killed. Right, you do understand this, right? How many times do we talk to him like that?
So whatever happens is your fault.
Yeah, right.
I'll do it, but it's your fault.
How many times do we talk to the Lord like that? In 17 through 20 is the encounter between Ananias and Shaul. And I thought it was interesting. He said, Brother Shaul, the Master Yeshua, who appeared to you on the way as you came, has sent me so that you might see again and be filled with the set-apart spirit. I love how that's the first thing he says. Oh, the Yeshua that appeared to you? Like, don't hurt me.
Exactly.
I just want to make it clear that we're on the same, we're like, brothers here. Because he calls him a brother.
Right. And since you can't see me right now, I'm still safe. But in a minute, I may not be.
That's right. That's right. When he laid hands on him and prayed for him, scales fell from his eyes.
That's just crazy.
I don't know. I thought that was just interesting that was how it was put. Scales actually fell from his eyes. And I know that's said so many times throughout Scripture about the scales falling off.
If you think about
it. And it's probably Paul that says it.
Yeah, I was going to say Paul.
Because he experienced it.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. Paul in Corinthians has a very good understanding when he talks about Moses and the veil that needs to... So he's got a
kind of
very personal experience. Yeah.
Right. Now, in 19, it says, and having received food, he was strengthened, and Shaul was with the taught ones at Damascus some days. Now, Luke makes it sound like it was just a few days. He was in Damascus, and then we see him in Jerusalem, right? But we know from Galatians that he was with them for many years.
Yeah,
he was with them a long time.
Several years. Doesn't he end up with the congregation or school?
Yes, he does. He ends up
school
he ends up with kind of an academy.
He's like the headmaster.
He's so bold in his proclamation of Yeshua as the Messiah that he does end up with an entire school.
Yeah.
But the Jews, the Yehudim, those in charge, are getting very aggravated.
Wait, the ones
his
down
school.
in Jerusalem?
Yes. Well, no.
left, or the
no,
ones in Damascus?
Nope, in Damascus.
Okay.
The ones in Damascus, because the rest of this, you'll see how their plot to kill him. Yeah. And then he was let down in a basket outside, and that's when he left Damascus. Now, the next thing they talk about right after him leaving Damascus is being in Jerusalem. But we know, again, from Galatians 1:17 through 18, that it was 3 years before he went down to Jerusalem, and that he had gone
the basket event?
Yes.
Okay.
And he had gone to Arabia. Now,
yeah.
Yes. So the research, I've always heard that he probably went to Mount Sinai.
Yeah.
And he may have. I don't know. I know that when Elijah went there, it wasn't for him to go there. So I don't know if he went there, but Arabia just represents the Moab and the Edom area. The Nabateans occupied that area, and that was considered Arabia.
And if I remember correctly, that is said to be where he got the understanding of the mystery.
I believe so, but I didn't research that further. But yeah,
but I think that is where he got the mystery, which is one reason why they go, oh, it was Mount Sinai, because the mystery was how Israel was, like it was back then, Jew and Gentile brought together. That's one reason why they lean toward, oh yeah, well, probably it was Mount Sinai because of what the mystery was.
The mystery that he got was. Right. Maybe so. Now, when he does arrive in Jerusalem, we see in 26 it says, and having arrived at Jerusalem, Shaul tried to join the taught ones, but they were all afraid of him, not believing that he was a taught one. This is where we see him meet Barnabas. Barnabas, yes, Barnabas. My Bible says Barnabas, but I think we know him as Barnabas.
Yeah.
And he testifies that, no, really, this guy has been up in Damascus. Mm-hmm. I've seen him, I've heard him. He really does believe Yeshua is the Messiah. And in fact, he was almost killed. So then he's brought before Peter. And I love the contrast, because here you have Peter, who is a fisherman, not much education, but head of the disciples, him and James.
Right. He's completely educated by the Holy Spirit.
Right. But we have Paul, on the other hand, who is unbelievably educated, overeducated, overqualified. It would be like someone from seminary getting hold of Torah. Yeah, I'm kidding. But he was just extremely smart, educated, very well versed, very worldly. He was a Roman citizen. He was a Pharisee. He was Jewish. I mean, he had 2 names. Hello. All right. Now, when we look at 28, it says, and he was with them at Jerusalem, and coming in and going out, and speaking boldly in the name of the Master Yeshua, and disputed with the Hellenists. So the very group he just was like, oh, let's dispute with, he was on this side, now he's on the other side.
Right.
Which just shows he's going right back to where he picked up.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, precept on precept.
Yes, exactly. So what he went away from, learned some things here. Now he's boldly speaking to them and arguing with them. And in 30 it says, when the brothers learned of this, they brought him down to Caesarea and sent him out to Tarsus. Then indeed the assemblies throughout Judah and Galilee and Samaria had peace and were built up, and walking in the fear of Yahweh and the encouragement of the set-apart Spirit, they were being increased. Now, it sounds like since Paul left, now they have peace. But that's not really, I want to give you a little background. So at this exact time, there was a deceiver in Samaria. I have no idea what his name was. It just says deceiver in the...
Simon. No, I'm just kidding. The magician.
No, it wasn't maybe it was the magician. But anyway, he was in Samaria, and he convinced the Samaritans that basically he was the Messiah. Right. He knew where a lot of the secret vessels were from the tabernacle. He was going to show it to them. So he had everybody gather together. And the only ones not deceived were the believers in Samaria. Okay. Because the believers, they had already... abandoned the Mount Gerizim theory, that's where the temple should be, or whatever it was.
Right.
But they had already abandoned that and had turned towards Jerusalem and had joined themselves to the Way, which was a sect of Judaism. So, but the ones who didn't followed him up there, and Pilate sent out men, and they were killed. All right. Mm-hmm. So then there was a big complaint to the king of Syria, and the king of Syria sent Pilate back to Rome to be chastised, and then he was taken out of power. He was taken out of power. Caiaphas was taken out of his power in the high priest as the high priest role, and a man named Jonathan was given the role, and they were also given their priestly garments back, because evidently up to that point Rome controlled the garments. And anytime,
that makes perfect sense, because they controlled who they put there.
Yes, anytime the high priest needed a garment for the festivals, he had to ask permission from Rome. Wow. Yes, so Rome gave them that authority back. So that is why this verse is here and says, now the emissary, throughout all of the land, they had a little bit of a reprieve, and this is when it really started to, spread like wildfire.
Yeah.
All right. So as we go on, now we're going to see it going to the rest of the world, to the Gentiles. Now we've had it in Jerusalem. We've had it to the Jews. It's gone to Samaria.
Right.
Now we're getting ready to see how we are a part of that.
Right. With the big explosion.
And with that, that's it. We are done.
Good stuff.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, and we will see you next week.
Shalom.